What is liquid surge in a tanker? The movement of liquid back and forth or side to side in a tank. This shifting mass can destabilize the vehicle if not managed. Surge spotted, onward. Why is liquid surge a significant hazard when driving a tanker? It can push the vehicle, affecting steering and braking, and potentially cause a rollover. Uncontrolled fluid motion amplifies momentum, making control difficult. Control regained, move out. What type of tank design is most susceptible to liquid surge? Smooth bore, no baffles. Without partitions, liquid moves freely and creates large momentum shifts. Baffles missing, caution. How do baffles in a tank affect liquid surge? They reduce the front to back surge. Internal partitions slow fluid movement, improving stability. Baffles intact, steady ride. When driving a tanker, how should you approach a curve? Slow down before entering the curve and accelerate gently through it. Reducing speed minimizes lateral fluid movement and risk of tipping. Curve conquered, keep going. What is the primary risk of an overloaded tanker? Rollover due to high center of gravity and unstable load. Excess weight raises the tipping threshold and reduces braking efficiency. Load balanced, proceed. What should you do when braking a tanker, especially a smooth bore? Use smooth, gradual braking to minimize surge. Sudden stops send fluid forward, risking nosediving or jackknifing. Braking gentle, continue. What is outage in the context of filling a tank? The allowance for liquid expansion in the tank. Leaving space prevents overpressure as temperatures rise. Space left, onward. Why is it crucial to know the outage needed for the liquids you carry? Liquids expand with heat, and if filled too full, the tank could rupture. Correct outage keeps pressure within safe limits. Outage set, move out. What is the maximum fill level for tanks that are not baffled and are loaded with liquid? Never fill them completely full. Leave outage for expansion. Extra headroom prevents overpressure and potential failure. Never full. Continuing. What is the effect of driving a partially filled tanker? Increased liquid surge, making the vehicle less stable. Excess space allows fluid to slosh, magnifying momentum shifts. Fill level noted. Safe travels. What should you do if you notice any leaks from your tank or hoses? Pull over safely and address the leak if possible, or report it immediately. Prompt action prevents environmental damage and cargo loss. Leak handled, move on. Before driving a tank vehicle, what should you inspect on the tank itself? For leaks, bulges, or damage to the tank shell, fittings, or valves. Any compromise can worsen under pressure or during transit. Tank solid, continuing. When inspecting the hoses used for loading, unloading, what should you look for? Cracks, cuts, abrasions, and secure connections. Damaged hoses can fail during transfer, causing spills or injuries. Hoses intact, onward. What are the dangers of quickly accelerating a tanker? It can cause significant liquid surge to the rear, potentially destabilizing the vehicle. Sudden throttle input shifts fluid backward, risking loss of traction. Throttle steady, continue. What is the safest way to turn a tanker with a high center of gravity? Reduce speed significantly before turning and maintain slow, steady speed through the turn. Slow, controlled turns minimize centrifugal force on the liquid. Turn smooth. Keep going. Why is it important to know the weight of the liquid you are transporting? To ensure you do not exceed the vehicle's GVWR or axle weight limits. Overweight loads increase stopping distances and risk structural damage. Weight checked, onward. What is the rollover threshold for a tanker? The point at which the vehicle's high center of gravity makes it prone to tipping. Exceeding this threshold during cornering or abrupt maneuvers triggers a roll. Threshold noted. Safe steering. What type of tanks typically have baffles inside? Cargo tanks carrying liquids. Bulk compartments use baffles to dampen fluid motion and enhance stability. Baffles present, steady ride. What should you do if an emergency forces you to stop your tanker quickly? Use controlled or stab braking to maintain control and minimize surge. Pulsing the brakes prevents lockup and reduces fluid slosh. Braking controlled, onward. When is it particularly dangerous to drive a tanker with a partial load, on curves, hills, or when making sudden stops or starts? Fluid momentum increases unpredictably in these conditions. Partial load, extra care. What should you do if the pressure in your tank unexpectedly rises? Follow emergency procedures, which may include venting the tank if safe and appropriate. Excess pressure can deform or rupture the tank if not relieved. Pressure managed. Continue. What are static charges, and why are they a concern during loading unloading? Buildups of electrical charge that can cause sparks, potentially igniting flammable liquids. Preventing static discharge is critical around volatile vapors. Static tamed, move on. How can you reduce static charges during loading unloading a tanker? By properly grounding the tank and using slow initial filling speeds. Grounding equalizes charge and slower flow limits frictional buildup. Ground secure. Continue. What is the primary risk of an improperly secured manhole cover on a tanker? Leakage of cargo and potential spill. Unsecured covers can fly off or leak under pressure. Cover locked, onward. Before opening any tank valve, what should you always check? The pressure inside the tank to ensure it is safe to open. Sudden release of high pressure can cause injuries or spills. Pressure safe, move on. What is the significance of the load limit markings on a tanker? They indicate the maximum amount of cargo the tank is designed to safely carry. Exceeding load limits stresses the tank structure and vehicle. Limit respected. Continue. Why should you be extra cautious when backing a tanker? Liquid surge can make backing more difficult and unpredictable. Fluid shifts can throw off balance, requiring slower, careful maneuvers. Backing slow? Keep going. What is the danger of driving a tanker with worn or damaged tires? Increased risk of blowouts, reduced traction and instability. Poor tires can't support heavy loads, risking loss of control. Tires replaced, onward. How do vehicle height and center of gravity affect a tanker? High center of gravity increases the risk of rollover, especially when turning. Taller loads amplify tipping forces. Low profile, continue. What is the main characteristic of a baffled tank? It has bulkheads or partitions to control liquid surge. Baffles break up fluid movement, reducing momentum. Surge contained, move on. What is a potential hazard when leaving a tanker unattended during loading unloading? Unauthorized access, spills, or tampering. Monitoring prevents theft, vandalism, or leaks. Never left, continue. What type of liquid expands the most when it gets warm? Flammable liquids like gasoline. High volatility means even small temperature changes increase volume. Gasoline noted, proceed. What should you do if you smell fumes coming from your tanker during transit? Pull over safely and investigate the source of the fumes. Fumes may indicate a leak or venting problem requiring immediate attention. Fumes handled, onward. What is the purpose of emergency shutoff valves on a tanker? To quickly stop the flow of liquid in case of a leak or emergency. Shutting off flow prevents larger spills or fires. Valves ready, move on. Why must you keep your speed constant and avoid sudden changes when driving a tanker? To minimize the effects of liquid surge and maintain stability. Abrupt speed shifts shift fluid violently, risking loss of control. Speed steady, continue. What should you do if you must drive a tanker on a slippery road? Reduce speed, increase following distance, and avoid sudden movements. Slower, smoother inputs maintain traction and control. Grip maintained, move on. What is the safest way to slow down a tanker on a downgrade? Use a low gear and engine braking, supplementing with light, intermittent service brake applications. Relying too much on brakes overheats them. Engine braking preserves stability. Descent controlled, onward. What is the specific risk of a tanker colliding with an object? Higher risk of spills, fires, and explosions due to the nature of the cargo. Impact can breach the tank, releasing hazardous material. Hazard noted, move on. What is the best way to handle a partially filled tanker? Drive with extreme caution, anticipate surge, and avoid sudden maneuvers. Partial loads have more fluid momentum, requiring slower, gentle handling. Caution kept, continue. What is the purpose of vapor recovery systems on some tankers? To capture fumes during loading unloading, preventing their release into the atmosphere. Reduces environmental pollution and fire risk. Vapors contained, onward. How does a high center of gravity impact vehicle stability? It makes the vehicle more prone to rolling over, especially during turns or uneven terrain. Lowering the center of gravity improves cornering safety. Stable stance, move on. When should you check the coupling of a tanker trailer to your tractor? Before starting the trip, after a short distance, and periodically during the trip. Ensures connections remain secure under road vibrations. Coupling confirmed, continue. What is the danger of allowing air pressure to build up excessively in a non-pressure tank during unloading? It can damage the tank or cause a rupture if not properly vented. Overpressure leads to structural failure. Pressure vented. Move on. What is the proper use of emergency lighting and warning signs around a tanker involved in an incident? To warn other motorists of the hazard and the presence of a tank vehicle. Clears a safe perimeter and prevents secondary collisions. Warnings set. Continue. What is the significance of the hazmat placards on a tanker? They indicate the type of hazardous material being transported and associated risks. First responders rely on placards to identify hazards quickly. Placards clear. Move on. What is the most critical factor when determining how much liquid to load into a tank? The legal weight limits and the liquid's expansion rate. Outage. Balancing weight and expansion space is vital for safety. Load accurate. Continue. What should you ensure about all valves, pipes, and hoses before driving a tanker? That they are securely closed and free from leaks. Open or damaged fittings can spill cargo or vapor. Fittings sealed. Onward. Why are emergency response procedures crucial knowledge for tanker drivers? To know how to safely handle spills, fires, or other incidents involving the cargo. Proper response limits damage and protects lives. Prepared always. Move on. What is the effect of driving a tanker with worn shock absorbers? Reduce stability and increase potential for liquid surge problems. Poor damping amplifies fluid movement over bumps. Shocks replaced. Continue. What is the purpose of regular cleaning and inspection of the interior of a tank? To prevent contamination of different cargoes and ensure tank integrity. Residue from previous loads can react dangerously with new cargo. Tank clean. Move on. What is the danger of combining a tractor with a tanker trailer if their braking systems are not compatible? Ineffective braking for the combination, leading to increased stopping distances. Mismatched systems risk brake failure and loss of control. Brakes matched. Continue. What is the primary characteristic of an unbaffled tanker? It is a single, large compartment with no internal walls to control liquid movement. Lacks partitions, so fluid surges freely throughout the tank. Unbaffled noted. Move on. What should a tanker driver do when preparing to cross railroad tracks? Check for trains, ensure there is enough room to clear the tracks, and avoid stopping on them. Stopping on tracks risks collision if traffic halts unexpectedly. Tracks cleared. Continue. Why is it important to carry the correct emergency equipment for the type of cargo you are transporting? To effectively respond to potential spills, leaks, or other incidents involving the cargo. Proper gear, like absorbents, fire extinguishers, or containment booms, reduces hazards. Equipment ready